All right, how's it going, everybody? Today is another great episode of Tea with Andrew, and am I on? Am I off? Am I good? Am I set? Hopefully people can see more than just my beard. Today we're actually being live over live studio audience, so this will be entertaining if you hear noises in the background and laughing. What I wanted to do today was talk about the scary thoughts that happen and stuff that sometimes happens in the real estate industry, where we have to deal with, we got a buyer's rep. Buyer's rep's a huge, important contract, huge, important thing, definitely needed, especially with the changes that have gone into effect. Whether you do not have a buyer's rep agreement or an agreement with a buyer, you are a sub-agent of the seller. So definitely strongly recommend having them. You need to have them, especially if your broker says so. But the fear comes along. What happens when you're talking to a buyer and say, hey, are you working with another agent? Their answer is always going to be, no, of course not. I'm not. Hopefully that's true. Sometimes they're not happy with their services, whatever it could be, things can happen. And if something happens and you don't know the truth or they don't understand it, what happens more often than not is they don't even know they've signed something. They don't even know what the agreement means or says, and they didn't know they've signed an agreement to work with another real estate agent. So horrible situation comes into it. What we've got is a situation of you've closed the deal, everything's gone smooth, and now another agent comes along close to closing or at closing and says, hey, this is my buyer. I'm of this commission. This is a huge issue, a huge fight. Now, what I'm going to talk about right now is legal things. So I'm going to start my conversation as I always do. I am not an attorney. I cannot give legal advice. I have spoken to the Texas Realtors Legal Hotline. I've gotten their input and their take on this. But I want to make sure everybody understands I am in no way interpreting law or telling people what they can and can't do. This is not a, hey, this is what the law says. All I can do is say what the real estate contract says. So we're going to go through, we've done a class where we've gone through the buyer's representation agreement. So we're not going to go through the whole thing. We're just going to talk about today this paragraph 11, the broker's fees. When are they earned? How are they earned? And how is it going to work? So real simply, commission is the parties agreed to pay the broker when we receive the commission, calculated as follows. Blank, a percentage of the gross sales price if client agrees to purchase property in the market area. And two, if client agrees to lease a property in the market area, fee equal to check one box only, a percentage or a month's rent or whatever it's going to be. So that's what we've agreed to do. Now the market area, of course, is what we're going to be talking about up here in a previous section of where it's going to be. Market area could be a county, a subdivision, a whatever it's going to be. It could be a flat out just this address. So whatever that market area is going to be is the agreement we have. Term, again, is going to be beginning and end. For it to be a legal contract, it has to have a beginning date and an end date. So you've got to make sure there's a close date on this bad boy to make sure it's all going smooth. The question comes into, and the problems that come into, what happens when the buyer's not happy anymore? What happens if the buyer moves on or someone comes along later and says, we've got to deal with you? This is an agreement between a buyer and a buyer's agent. It's 100% what it is. I have agreed to pay a commission to you if I purchase a property. It's an A and a B contract, right? This is an agreement where the buyer and the buyer's agent have a deal. Now, if I have a deal with a buyer, that buyer has agreed to pay me a commission. If I help that buyer sell a contract that is listed in the multiple listing service, then in the multiple listing service, I am the procuring cause of that contract, and the listing agent has agreed through the multiple listing service to pay me a commission. That is how that works. So if a separate agent comes along later and says, hey, wait a minute, I have a buyer's rep, I get paid. This is a completely different contract than that contract. You can't come into me later and say, hey, you have a contract to get paid, and you have the right to sue or whatever you want to do on that contract with the buyer. But you do not have a right to interfere with my contract and my agreement with the other agent. That's the way I understand it. That's the way Texas Realtors has explained it to me. So we talk about source of commission payments. Broker will seek to obtain payment of the commission specified in paragraph 11A, first from the seller, landlord, or their agents. If such persons refuse or fail to pay broker the amount specified, client will pay broker the amount specified, less than the amount broker receives from such persons. So right there, buyer is agreeing to paying a commission. We're going to try to get it first from the other agent. Now, in this situation, if there's a whole new other agent involved, you're not procuring cause of that contract. So that's a whole other issue. Earned and payable. A person is not obligated to pay a broker commission until such time as broker's commission is earned and payable. Broker's commission is earned when 1, client enters into a contract to buy or lease a property in the market area, or 2, client breaches the agreement. Broker's commission is payable either during the term of the agreement or after it ends. Upon the earlier of the closing of the transaction to acquire the property, client's breach of a contract to buy or lease a property in the market area, or client's breach of this agreement. If a client acquires more than 1 property under this agreement, broker's commissions for each property are acquired, are earned as each property is acquired, and are payable at closing of each acquisition. That's pretty straightforward. Now, the problem is, again, comes into, it's a bilateral agreement. The buyer agrees to pay the other agent when they sell themselves a house, but the seller has agreed to help them purchase a home. If they're not aware that you moved on and gone somewhere else or doing something, are they holding up their end of the deal? That's not for me to say, but it's a conversation that's going to happen, because I guarantee if you go after a buyer for a commission, they're probably going to, at the very least, do a truck complaint against you, may even sue you saying, hey, you didn't do anything, you didn't hold your end of that bargain. So what I found in my time in the real estate business is I don't want to work with someone that doesn't want to work with me. It just makes my life a whole lot easier to say, you know what, let's just go ahead and end this now. We'll end this as unlikely friends and move forward and move on. But the fact remains, these are the rules that go into play. Now, are you owed a commission? Yes. But who owes you that commission? The buyer who you have an agreement with. The seller of the transaction that you had nothing to do with, this agent does not owe you a commission. The buyer's agent who actually helped them fulfill the obligation does not owe you a commission. They did not agree to pay you any commission at any time in this transaction. The only person who agreed to pay you a commission is the buyer. And you have the right to do whatever you feel is necessary to fulfill this obligation, this contract. Additional compensation. If seller, landlord, or other agent offers compensation in excess of the amount stated in paragraph 11A, including but not limited to marketing incentives or bonuses to competent brokers, broker may retain the additional compensation and additional or specified commission. Client is not obligated to pay any such additional compensation to broker. So what that means is, if I get more than what we agreed, I get to keep it. It's a great deal. Love it. Love that paragraph. Acquisition of broker's listings. Notwithstanding any provision to the contrary, if client acquires a property listed by broker will be paid in accordance with the terms of broker's listing agreement with the owner, and client will have no obligation to pay broker. So the nice thing there is, if you're paying a smaller fee than you are agreed to pay, the buyer's a little bit off the hook there, which is nice. Now the real question comes in paragraph G. We're not going to worry about because that's protection period and works and doesn't work and how. Escrow authorization. Now, paragraph H is where questions come in, and that's why I wanted to make sure I wrap my head around it correctly with the legal hotline. Client authorizes and broker may so instruct any escrowing agent authorized to close the transaction for the acquisition of property contemplated by this agreement to collect and disperse to broker all amounts payable to broker. Now, the way I understand it and the way it was explained to me by Texas Realtors, again, I am not interpreting law in any way, shape, or form, is very clearly, if I, as the previous buyer with the buyer's representation agreement, send this to the title company, we can add to the contract, to the CD, an additional commission to me as an agent getting paid. I cannot interfere with the other contract that is already in place. I think that's contract interference, and I think you get fair struggle for that. Now, in no way, shape, or form does this give any agent the authority to go out there and just start working around people. This is with the understanding that you did not know of or yourself interfere with their contract in any way, shape, or form. So just kind of something out there. It's something we've seen, something we've done. I don't want to go into too much detail with this because it's kind of a downer subject, but just making sure you guys get our take on it, because we see this happen. Luckily, not too often, but if it does happen, how it works and how it's going to continue to work, and understand what you can do. If you have questions on this, guys, one huge advantage of your dues dollars is we get access to attorneys. You can call the Texas Realtors Legal Hotline, and it gives you a great opportunity to say, hey, make sure I understand this. How does it work? And go to your broker. You know, your broker's job is to fight for their agents. And if the broker's going to do that, that's what we get paid for. That's why I get the big bucks to deal with things when they become an issue. So just remember things to think about, things to understand. It gets really confusing on this because in one hand they're saying, hey, I have an agreement, but that agreement does not give you the authority to interfere with someone else's agreement. So it's a tough question. It's an interesting question. And I hope this was helpful and beneficial for you guys. I look forward to, I don't know if I'm going to be in the class with Andrew or with Kenton tomorrow because I'm going to be doing a class. So we're still working out the logistics on that. But if not, I'll see you guys next Wednesday. Appreciate it. Hope everybody has a great day.